I would like to talk about your grandfather.
Yes.
And talk about his history.
Yes.
And then just understand your feelings or your reflections
Yes.
on it. So could you talk about what was his journey into politics? Where did his core values of wanting to help people come from?
His core values were developed in the East End of London. So his school, Haileybury, had various schemes in the East End of London. So that's what made him go to the East End of London, and he saw the unbelievable poverty. So he would see children running around without any shoes on their feet. And it was, to be honest, very much capitalist exploitation of the working class. The system was quite happy to have people in poverty. In fact, even in the 1930s, the neonatal mortality rate of children was unbelievable high. You couldn't possibly tolerate it, but they tolerated huge mortality rates. So it was grim, and he knew it needed to be better. So he did a lot of work in the East End of London, and with Toynbee Hall, which was a well-established charity. So he had his family in Putney in luxury, but he was down in the East End of London, and he was a qualified barrister, but he didn't actually practice very much at all, and just got stuck in, and that's what got him into it, made him a socialist, made him realise that we needed to change this because it wasn't right.
So he was a barrister by background, but then he wasn't actually practicing.
No, he did. I think he did one or two cases, but nevertheless, of course, it's still a good training.
Yeah.
Being legally qualified is perfectly good training, but he didn't do much of it.
And then in 1935, he became leader of the opposition. What was his vision at that time?
It was quite a long journey there.
Yeah.
Because he'd been mayor of Stepney.
Yes.
But also, so he did quite a lot with cadets.
Yes.
Before the First World War, and then he went away and fought the First World War, which was quite an experience.
Yeah.
And that must have taught him. And then did local government, and then got into Parliament, and then, as you say, became leader of the opposition.
He was MP for Limehouse.
Yes.
Is that right? Which is in East London.
Yes.
That's where he did a lot of his work. Okay. And then when he became leader of the opposition, in terms of those core values, how did that shape his vision for the Labour Party? Because we're going to talk about how he then became the Prime Minister, the first Labour Prime Minister with a majority government.
Yes.
But when he was leader of the opposition, what did he see the Labour Party to be? What was his ambitions?
I can't answer that because I don't know enough about it.
Of course, yeah.
But the objective was to get in power as a Labour government with a workable majority in order to do the things they needed to do. So it's pointless being in opposition because you can't change anything. So he was driven by the need to get the Labour Party into power and do whatever was reasonable in order to get in power, in order to have a Labour government, in order to get the changes that were necessary, which got us to where we are now, and we're still reaping the benefits to this day of the work of that 1945 government.
I feel that's a revolutionary type of thought he had at that time. I feel the party actually wasn't there, that actually they were, even though he had self-identified at that time as a socialist, but him saying we want to be a party of governments.
Yes.
Am I correct to say that wasn't actually the mindset of the party then? It was actually just being a mainstream party. Another fascinating thing I find that people describe him is not necessarily his work as Prime Minister, but as a statesman. people described him as a modest man.
Yes.
Someone who wasn't necessarily the loudest person, but a very intelligent person. I guess from your understanding or what people have told you about him, how was his mannerism in terms of how he approached politics or being an MP or politician?
His brilliant. We've got to understand his brilliant. His brilliance was getting a disparate group of people with different views to work together to achieve the objective. They absolutely understood what their objective was. They wanted to make the country a better place with equality of opportunity and health and all those things that very, very desirable. But he got them all to work together, although some of them hated each other. So there's the quote where one of them said, so-and-so's his worst enemy, and Ernie Bevan said, "Not while I'm alive, he ain't."
Yeah. Where do you get that modest values from, would you say? Is that from his upbringing?
It's innate. It was absolutely innate. And I would like to have... Unfortunately, I haven't got the intellect that he had. But in that respect, I think I'm very similar. So, I like to think I'm modest. I don't blow my own trumpet, and this is absolutely essential. And I would say the Attlees are always underestimated. And even here, I think I've been underestimated, constantly underestimated.
As in...
So Clem was underestimated. They thought that even once they won the election, they thought that they would be able to change him for someone else. But he's far ahead of them all.
Exactly. Because we don't see that in modern politics these days.
No, we don't.
Not just UK, but just anywhere, that actually you have to be a very loud person, bold, radical. But he was still a revolutionary. He still was progressive.
Oh, yes. But he actually... You can be a revolutionary but not change anything. So there are only two prime ministers, post-war prime ministers, who left the country in a different state to which they found it. And one was Clement Attlee and one was Margaret Thatcher. All the others maybe did a good job or a bad job, but they did the best job they could as they found the circumstances. But actually, in terms of leaving the country different, it's only the two.
And do you feel maybe he was that style, or that style was accepted just because maybe the times and that's what people were looking for in leaders? Or do you actually feel...
Well, you used the word leaders, and I think people get confused between leadership, which I would describe as the art of getting people to do things they'd rather not do, even better if they can want to do it, but at least get them to do things they don't really want to do, and charisma. So people look at the charisma of the current politician. Oh God, yeah, he's a great leader. But actually, it's charisma and
that's also needed.
Gift of the gab and all the rest of it. Very articulate. So people muddle that up, those characteristics, with leadership. And what I found with my own modest political career, especially when we got in government, I found that leadership was even more important than I thought it would be. And where we see ministers complaining privately that they can't get officials to do what they want them to do, maybe they got a leadership problem. And Clem, he didn't need to change the system. The system, the way it all worked, he didn't change that. He made a slight change to the Parliament Act, but only a modest change. But apart from that, he used the system as he found it to have the effect that he wanted. But I think it's very, very important. And I think for current politicians, a lot of their problem actually is they're not selected for leadership. They're selected for the gift of the gab, the charisma.
So I guess, what advice do you have for, let's say, for ordinary people who are listening today? I maybe feel this pressure that I need to maybe be a bit louder or think, how am I different or unique? And if I only get my short moment with someone, I need to say something very effectively, even if it's out of character of me. But that's what I found very impressive reading about Prime Minister Attlee is he was a modest person, wasn't necessarily very loud, but got so much done.
Yes.
And actually at the key decisions, which we'll talk about later, such as nuclear armaments of the UK and managing to convince the Labour Party of that, that would have taken a sense
Not sure he gave them much choice.
Yes. So what advice do you have for young people or young professionals listening today about how to maintain modesty or modesty in your character?
Well, I just said, actually, I'm afraid it's innate.
Okay.
The innate, I'm innately modest and innately shy as well. Clem was shy and I'm shy. And you'll see me strolling around the House of Lords, as I like to think I'm a reasonably experienced operator in the House of Lords, and I've got evidence that I can be effective. But I'm assuming the mantle of a peer of the realm of the United Kingdom. So, I'm like that. But actually, I can be very, very shy.
But there's shy in the terms of timid and maybe not putting yourself forward out there. But there are some people who maybe are ambitious,
Yes,
want to do more, but feel they may need to live to, the excitement or hype or meeting that change. If someone wants to become a bit more of a calmer attitude or a controlled manner like yourself and your family, what advice do you have? How do you become a very quietly confident person in yourself?
My view of it is it's innate. A lot of it. But you can learn some lessons to respect others and respect other people's views, and you can learn lessons from life. You think, how could I have done that differently or better? Some situation, you think, perhaps I could have done that. Or someone, maybe you got a mentor who might just have a word in your ear and say, "You sure about that?"
A lot of people find very impressive about your grandfather is how good of a statesman he was. And that's right from when he was leader of the opposition all the way to when he was, Prime Minister. But I want to talk about more his role in the war cabinet.
Yes.
You said he has military experience. Firstly, would you say, and you've had military experience, would you say military experience shapes you as a person in terms of decision making, calmness, able to help people?
I think the number of aspects on that.
Yeah.
But in thought process, decision processing, but also communicating your intent. So very, very important for the military, for a commander, to be able to communicate the commander's intent to subordinates. And in the British military, we've currently got something called mission command. And under mission command, you should understand the intent of your commander 2 levels up. So if you're a major commanding a company, you understand what the intent of the commanding officer is, but you also understand the intent of the brigade commander.
Yes.
And therefore, when there's no one there to tell you what to do, because you understand the intent 2 levels up, without being told what to do, you still know what to do in order to achieve your commander's intent and your commander's intent. They'd have done it a different way in Clem's time on operations, but nevertheless, that ability to knowing how to tell people what to do will be valuable. But also, in his time, he was seen how ghastly war is, how it's to be avoided at all possible costs, because and all that lot, all those politicians of the time, they'd gone through the First World War, the war to end all wars, and the difficulty they had is they never wanted to have another war again, which is why they were so slow to rearm. And though we haven't had a ghastly war, the current generation, we've got a problem now, whether we rearm or not. in the face of the Russian threat. The problem they had in the 1930s is they absolutely didn't want to have another war, and absolutely understandable. But they're faced with the rise of Hitler, and very, very difficult situation.
That's interesting. I didn't think of that angle, actually. Yes, a lot of them, like Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain, they all served in the First World War.
Yeah.
And that probably, did somewhat.
And when I came here in 1992, the people right at the top, not necessarily the leader of the House, but certainly the people who had been leader of the House, they'd all prosecuted the Second World War. So Lord Carrington, Lord Healy, Dennis Healy, Lord Runcie, Lord Mowbray, all those people. He had an eye patch, but they'd all fought in the Second World War. When Clem was in the War Cabinet, I mean, he prosecuted the war, and had Churchill as well. They'd all fought, so they were pretty hard. And I think a difficulty we have now, and it's obtained since certainly 1990, none of our political leaders have ever tasted military defeat or been hungry. Whereas the people I met, this very, very senior people, like the Carringtons of this world, they had tasted defeat. Defeat means you can't do militarily what you want to do because the enemy has got superiority over you, and they've been hungry, and they never wanted it to happen again. And even Dennis Healy, though you might criticise him as Chancellor, but we spent a huge amount of money on defence when he was the Chancellor of the Exchequer, and the reason was because that generation never wanted to be defeated again because it's so ghastly.
That's interesting to see how being part of the military or soldier actually shapes your experiences and even shapes your political philosophy, to be honest. Yeah. And yes,
but in Clem's time, when he was in the driving seat or very senior, they absolutely didn't want to have another war. No one wants to have a war, so it was so difficult for them.
So, from my understanding, at that time, when the Conservative Party were more leaning towards appeasement,
yes,
and you said because they didn't want a war.
Well, no one wanted a war.
No one
wants a war now either. But yes, go on. But
I guess some people, or maybe what I've read, they've maybe described as cowardly or maybe giving in to Hitler at the time. But you're more actually saying, let's say, the financial reasons, or just definitely not wanting the catastrophe of a war.
Absolutely. So far as I can see, it was the fact that the First World War, you cannot believe how ghastly the First World War was. It really was dreadful.